So hello students, today we are going to cover an important chapter of class 10th NCERT, which is from social science history, the nationalism in India. So before starting the chapter, let me introduce myself a little bit. So I am Raghav Daksh and I am currently pursuing my history honors from University of Delhi College of Vocational Studies. Now let's dive into the chapter. So uh, before starting the unit, let's first understand the timeline of nationalism in India. In order to understand nationalism, you need to focus on took, how Gandhian era started in India, and how many movements such as Satyagraha and non-cooperation and civil disobedience movements of Gandhiji started in India. So before India, Gandhiji was in South Africa. So in 1893, Gandhiji arrives in South Africa. Then in 1906, first Satyagraha campaign was introduced by him in South Africa. Then in 1913, victory he achieved victory against laws in South Africa. Then in 1915, Gandhiji returns to India. So from here you need to focus. So after 1915, he introduced three satyagrahas back to back. In 1917, Champaran Satyagraha was introduced in Bihar. Then in Kheda Satyagraha, in 1918, Kheda Satyagraha was introduced in Gujarat. Then in 1920, he launched non-cooperation movement, and then later on, Salt March took place in 1930 and 1931, Round Table Conference. So all of this we need to understand how these movements took place and how it affected the nationalism of India. Okay, now let's in the introduction let's understand how Indian nationalism grew in India. So modern nationalism, which took place in Europe, basically in European countries, was associated with the formation of nation states. Meanwhile, in India, like many other colonies, the growth of modern nationalism is connected to anti-colonial movement. So let's understand it like when Britishers came, nationalism came afterwards. So the feeling of oppression among Indians led to the rise of nationalism in India. Okay, so the same feeling, the oppression feeling, and we all faced many atrocities caused by Britishers. So these this connected feeling led to the anti-colonial movements. Now, the first topic is the First World War, Khilafat and non-cooperation. The First World War, which took place between 1914 and 1918, created a new political and economic situation in India. So, in India, India faced various problems during the war period, such as increase in defense expenditure as Britishers were taking many resources and all the expenditure was done on was they were doing it on military on warfare tactics on they were recruiting soldiers from they were forced recruitment in rural areas of India. Okay, so they were basically taking people from India and putting them into the war to die, and they were taking all the resources, and due to which the prices increased through the warriors. This led to the economic crisis in India, basically. So during 1819 and between 1918 and 1920 to 21, crop failure took place in many parts of the India, and hardships did not even end after the war was over. They even increased. So now let's understand the idea of Satyagraha. Satyagraha is a novel way of fighting the colonial rule in India. It is a non-aggressive, peaceful mass agitation against oppression and injustice. In January 1915, Mahatma Gandhi returned to India. So the whole idea of Satyagraha was based on non-violence. It created a situation where the people of India will fight for the freedom in a non-aggressive way, in a peaceful way, without any radical approach. Okay, so this was all about Satyagraha. And in January 1915, when Mahatma Gandhi returned to India, Gandhiji organized Satyagraha movement in Champaran, Bihar in 1916, in Kheda district of Gujarat in 1917, and then amongst cotton mill workers in Ahmedabad in 1918. So you can make a short form such as CKA, first in Champaran, then in Kheda, and then in Ahmedabad. So just like that, you can make some mnemonics and understand these in order, so that you can easily remember it. Now, the Rowlatt Act was passed by Britishers in 1919. This act basically gave the government enormous power to repress political activities and allowed detention of political prisoners without trial for 2 years. So what happened was Britishers introduced the Rowlatt Act for their own, because they were for their own benefit, as they wanted that no one should be allowed to oppose us or criticize us. So they introduced the Rowlatt Act, and according to that this act, Britishers were allowed to put anyone who is acting against their interest, uh, to put them into the jail for 2 years without any trial. Now, after the act was introduced, Jallianwala Bagh massacre took place. On 13th April 1919, a huge crowd gathered in the enclosed ground of Jallianwala Bagh. So they were gathered for the festival of Baisakhi, and most of them were Sikh people. Now, General Dyer, and they didn't know about the Rowlatt Act either. So General Dyer entered the area, he blocked the exit points and opened fire on the crowd, killing hundreds of people. Now, as the news spread, strikes, clashes with the police, and attacks on the government buildings started. The government responded with brutal repression. Okay, now as this agitation took place, it escalated and turned to violence. So Gandhiji called off the Rowlatt Satyagraha as the violence spread. Okay, you can see that. So he called off the Rowlatt Satyagraha as the violence spread. Okay, because it was against his policies of non-violence. Also, you can see the picture here, how hundred of people were killed by British troops. Now, let's see non-cooperation and Khilafat. Non-cooperation movement was started in 1920. It was a response to Jallianwala Bagh massacre. It was led by Mahatma Gandhi, and the objective of this movement was to resist British colonial rule through non-violent means. Now, main actions taken in this movement were boycotting of British goods, institutions, and services like schools, sports, and legislatures. Methods were used such as non-violence, non-cooperation with the British, promotion of Swadeshi. Now, Swadeshi, well, promotion of Swadeshi means that use of Indian-made goods such as khadi. You must be familiar with it. Now, the movement mobilized millions of Indians. British authority faced resistance, and it increased the national consciousness among Indians that yeah, we need to fight against Britishers, as they were looting us and as they were using our resources, and they were repressing us. They were putting us into the jail and doing whatever they felt like. So a national consciousness arise in the hearts of people, and a feeling of patriotism or nationalism grew in India. Now, the Khilafat movement took place in 1990. It was introduced and led by Ali brothers, Maulana Muhammad Ali and Maulana Shaukat Ali. The whole objective of Khilafat movement was to protect the Ottoman Caliphate. Now, the Ottoman Caliphate was the religious leadership of Muslims. After its defeat in the World War One, the Treaty of Sevres in 1920 was signed by allies aimed to dismantle the Ottoman Empire, which affected the Muslim world. Okay, so after the war, they lost, and a treaty was signed, according to which they were about to dismantle the Ottoman Empire, which would particularly hamper the Muslim world in the country. Okay. Now, Gandhiji decided to incorporate Khilafat movement with non-cooperation. So the support led to gaining the support from Muslims and promoting pan-Islamic unity. Actions were taken such as boycott. They boycotted British goods, called for peasants, protest against British policies in the Middle East. Okay, this all was happening. So non-cooperation movement was incorporated in Khilafat movement, and a Hindu-Muslim unity was seen during this period. Now, there were different strands within the movement, such as each group interpreted Swaraj in their own ways. Like they had their own interests, so everyone interpreted freedom or Swaraj in their own thoughts, in their own ways. So let's see the movement in towns, how the movement in towns took place. It started with a middle class participation in cities. Student, teachers, lawyers gave up their studies, jobs, legal practices, and joined movements. Council elections were boycotted, foreign goods were boycotted too. Now, the movements in countryside or the village areas, peasants and tribal took over the struggle, which turned violent gradually. Peasant movements in Awadh took place, such as the peasants were led by Baba Ramchandra against landlords and talukdars. Okay. Now, in 1920, the Awadh Kisan Sabha was set up, which was headed by Jawaharlal Nehru, Baba Ramchandra, and a few others. Okay. Now, movement of tribals also took place in Andhra Pradesh. Alluri Sitaram Raju. You must have heard about him because a very famous movie, RRR, mentioned him as the hero of the movement. So I haven't seen the movie, but I know the movie mentioned him. So Alluri Sitaram Raju led the guerrilla warfare in Gudem Hills of Andhra Pradesh. The rebels attacked police stations, and Raju was captured and executed in 1924. So this all was happening in the countryside. Now let's see how Swaraj was interpreted by plantation workers. For the plantation workers, Swaraj means moving freely. They protested against the Inland Immigration Act, which was introduced in 1859, which prevented them from leaving the plantation without any permission. Now, what was happening in the plantation workers was that they broke this Inland Immigration Act, which was introduced. According to this act, they were not allowed to leave without the permission of British. So what they did was they broke the law and they left the plantation without permission. So each group interpreted Swaraj in their own ways. Like it was different for townspeople, it was different for countryside people, for tribals it was different, for peasants, for plantation workers, etc., etc. Okay, so everyone interpreted it in their own ways. Let's see how civil disobedience introduced. Towards civil disobedience, Mahatma Gandhi decided to call off the non-cooperation movement due to Chauri Chaura incident. So the Chauri Chaura incident was when the peaceful agitation, the peaceful movement turned to escalated into a violent movement, and the police station was burned down by the people, and 23 police officials died due to it. Now, where the Chauri Chaura incident, where violence erupted during a protest, was going against the principle of Gandhiji, which was non-violence. So Gandhiji decided to call it off. This left a gap in leadership with different views emerging on how to proceed. Now, the formation of Swaraj Party happened in the Congress during that era. C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru, who were moderates. So, you need to understand how Congress worked. There were factions in the Congress too. The Congress was divided into two parts. The sum of some of the people were moderates and some of the people were extremists. Now, what's the difference between moderates and extremists? Now, moderates were those who decided to work within the British framework to achieve reforms. And meanwhile, the extremists were those people who wanted the radical mass agitation and demanded for full independence. So they were demanding for independence through violence and through protesting, not the violence, through protesting and through acting against the British policies. So C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru were two moderates. These leaders formed the Swaraj Party within the Congress, advocating for a return to council politics, which was working within the British framework to achieve reforms. Now, the opposition, younger leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose, pushed for more radical mass agitation. So these were more of a extremists. So they demanded for radical mass agitation and demanded full independence, which was termed as Purna Swaraj. Now, let's see some of the factors that shaped Indian politics towards the late 1920s. Worldwide economic depression took place in 1930s. See, the agricultural hardship was seen during the economic depression. The falling of prices and reduced exports. Simon Commission was introduced in 1927 in India. It made some suggestions for the changes in governance. So they asked people of India to work on their constitution, but yeah, later on, but because of no Indian representation in the Simon Commission, a strong opposition was seen from Congress and nationalists. So a very famous um, line was popularized, which was "Go back, Simon." Okay, and Lahore session took place in 1929, where the Purna Swaraj was demanded by the people. So a shift was seen to complete independence under Nehru's leadership. Now, in 1930, Salt March took place, where Gandhiji decided to uh, choose salt because salt was something that was used by every class of the country. So, salt united all sections of the society. It was started on March 12, 1930, and Gandhiji reached Dandi on April 6, 1930. He broke the salt law, and from where he started? He started from Sabarmati. So, from Sabarmati to Dandi, he walked. Now, he broke the salt law, which symbolized the law violation. British response was that it was a brutal repression. Leaders like Gandhi and Nehru were arrested um, in the process in the Salt March. So Britishers decided to put them into the jail and arresting every political, you know, um, representative that was acting against their interest. Now, Gandhi-Irwin Pact took place in 1931 on 5th March 1931, which was signed by Lord Irwin, who was the Viceroy of India, and Gandhiji. Um, Gandhiji demanded a few things which were completed by Irwin at that time, such as release of political prisoners, salt production should be allowed, and no new taxes should be introduced. So these demands were agreed, um, and but in second roundtable conference which took place in 1931, Gandhiji went to London to attend it in December 1931, but all everything was not put into considerations, and there was no agreement between Gandhiji and Irwin. So a disappointment was seen, where British refused full independence and constitutional changes. Now, the civil disobedience movement declined, but it was relaunched by Gandhiji. But eventually, it lost its importance after the second roundtable conference, as no demand was carried out by Irwin. So, repression was seen by Britishers. Britishers repressed Indians and the civil disobedience movement. There were a few limits of civil disobedience too, such as Dalits did not participate in the movement. They wanted reserved seats and separate electorates for themselves. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar formed a depressed class association in 1930s, um, which eventually clashed with Gandhiji's interest, as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was aiming to achieve separate electorates for Dalits, but Gandhiji was against it as it will hamper the unity within Hindus itself. So the Pune Pact was signed in 1932. According to this pact, the pact granted reserved seats for Dalits in the provincial and central councils. Though reserved, these seats would be voted on by the general electorate, not just Dalits. So, Pune Pact gave reserved seats for Dalits in the provincial and central councils, but it was reserved even though. But these seats would be voted on by the general electorate, not just Dalits. So the general electorate will also vote, and Dalits will also vote. So it was not about only Dalits were allowed to vote. So everyone was allowed to vote, but there were some reserved seats for Dalits. For Muslims, we see that Muhammad Ali Jinnah demanded reserved seats in Central Assembly for Muslims, but there was no active participation in his under him. So let's see how the sense of collective belongingness took place in India, and which led to the rise of nationalism. So the sense of collective belonging came partly through the experience of united struggles. As we all know how Britishers came and they did atrocities, and due to which they did coercive policies, and many things were done to Indians. So a sense of collective belongingness came partly through the experience of united struggles, how we all struggled together against Britishers, against the oppression. So history and fiction, folklore and songs, popular prints and symbols were popularized during that era, as the everyone was struggling against Britishers. So we all united together and all played a part in making of the nationalism. Um, Things like allegory were becoming famous. They were symbols such as songs, fictions, folklores, and if you know, a symbol of Bharat Mata was popularized, which lead to the rise of nationalism, sentiments, patriotism feeling in within the people. Okay, so by 1921, Gandhiji had designed the Swaraj flag. It was again a tricolor and had a spinning wheel in the center. So this is how the nationalism in India took place, and how Indians fought against Britishers, and their Gandhiji decided to introduce a few policies. These policies influenced the nationalism in India. So all this was something which led to the rise of nationalism. So yeah, I guess this was all about the chapter. I hope you all understood it well. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comment section. So that was it. Thank you so much.